Hey, Goddess, welcome back. This is Andrea with You Are Mind, Body, Soul. I'm so happy to have returned to you all after a little bit of a break. I actually went on a trip to New York and got myself refreshed after just a lot of things that I had going on, positive shifts in my business and positive things that I'm doing in the community. But I am back now, and today's topic is why you need to stop asking for permission and what this has to do with your inner child healing. I coach goddesses to bridge the mind, body, and soul. So that means that I work with the divine feminine frequency so that we can heal all of these limiting beliefs and things that we have going on in our bodies that are deeply seated in the past. And I help women to transition their lives and transform their lives into their most authentic essence. Before I get started, I want to remind you to please like, share, and subscribe. When you share that energy with me, it makes sure that my budding channel, my growing, blooming channel, gets out to as many goddesses like yourself as possible. So Spirit put it upon my heart to talk about why we need to stop asking for permission. So I want you to think about when you are going through life and when you are making decisions that make you uncomfortable, decisions that you know when you look back on them a few years from now, that they are going to be, or what you feel in the moment is going to change your life in the way that you see it. What is the first thing that we do? You're going to go and you're going to ask somebody for permission, right? You're going to either ask your friend or someone that you find as a confidant, like someone that you trust, hopefully. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally natural for us to feel like we want to get validation in our choices. But this video is not talking about simply getting a second opinion. This video talks about permission from a state where we are so frequently asking for permission for the things that our heart and our spirit and our intuition has naturally guided us to the point where we don't give ourselves that opportunity to be confident in the decisions that we make. And I was going to call this video How to Tap into Your Goddess Frequency by Stop Asking for Permission. But we really want to get to the root of the issue, which is our inner child. Okay. I meet some women and they wonder why I use the term goddess a lot. It is because in each and every one of us, we have a divine feminine frequency within us, this ancient knowledge within our wombs, within our hearts, and within our spirit that give us the wisdom and that gives us the access to our most delicious life. And when I really started to commit to my devotional goddess practices, which are self-care, spiritual, they are physical devotions, my inner child was a critical gatekeeper in the abundance and the freedom that I now experience in life. So when we feel like we have to go to someone to ask for permission, a lot of times it can be simple things we ask for permission for that we don't even think about, like what should I have for dinner? Or if I wear something, how are people going to respond to this? And I feel like this is one of the reasons why social media can get out of hand and being reliant on social media for that validation. It's very important to have an authentic sense of self. And when we are children and we are open and we are exploring and we are curious, we get used to the process of asking our parents for permission. It's normal. They were the ones that kept us safe up until a point. And as you age, it's important to understand that you're responsible for your own safety and for your own sense of wellness. It's your responsibility now. So as we grow and as we develop different aspects of our personality, which can be found in tests like the MBTI, which is one of my favorite tests to take. You can study Enneology and Enneagram work. You can simply start with your astrological chart to get more information about yourself. But specifically, when I started to work with the Enneagrams, which is human design, I was exposed to the understanding that we shape our reality as children, and we either have habits that we create that serve as defense mechanisms for the dangers that we perceived in our reality, or we develop certain habits because as children, you realize that, oh, if I'm quiet, then I won't get called out or I won't get picked on. Or if I am loud and I am, bringing a lot of attention to myself, that can be rewarded in life. So it's these different behavioral characteristics that we grew accustomed to in our childhood, that we took from our childhood, that served as regulatory mechanisms so that we could get the response from our reality that we desired. And one of those things is permission. So what happens is when you start doing your inner work, which is what I really help to guide goddesses to do, is the inner work around certain behavioral mechanisms that used to serve us when we were young, that no longer serve us when we are adults. Let me give you an example. For example, when I was younger, it used to be okay for me to be quiet. I was very shy when I was younger. It was hard for me to speak. It was hard for me to assert myself. And a large part of that was because, I grew up in a more or less traditional Southern family raised by a single mother. And her whole thing was a child is to be seen and not heard. So no wonder I'm a dancer, because in that way I can speak through my movement, and I didn't have to open my mouth to explain and how much pain I was in and the issues and the challenges that I went through in life because I suppressed my skill and my ability of speaking about my life and speaking my truth. But one of the biggest gifts of my inner child work was freeing up that space within my throat to be more authentic in my expression and in my truth. And now I'm at a point where I speak fearlessly wherever I go. Even if my voice trembles, I still am never afraid to speak my truth. And that was the gift that I was given through my inner child work. Okay. And I have helped several women. We usually start oftentimes with inner child work because this stuff gets trapped in your development. So in developmental psychology, which I studied in my undergraduate degree program, developmental psychology, these things get trapped in our subconscious. So it's important to begin to do that inner work with your behavioral patterns that and there is a certain truth that we want to develop. There's a certain honesty that we want to have with ourselves, that one of the things that I invite and I encourage you to do is to have that full transparency with yourself when you sit and when you journal and when you reflect about the different habits that you have and how they are shaping your reality. Because once you start to do that, and once you start to give your inner child permissions that your inner child didn't have when they were younger, again, you begin to free up that trapped energy and that trapped space that is blocking you from your authentic self, that's blocking you from your goddess frequency. So other ways that unhealed inner child work shows up when it comes to our ability to expand into new levels and into juicier states of reality, are when we find ourselves in particularly relationships with leadership, which is one of the issues that I had for a long time was leadership issues. Okay. So a lot of times once we grow into adulthood, carrying those bags from childhood, they can show up in the form of bosses that sometimes have similar characteristics to your parents. It can show up in the form of a partner that has developed, that this relationship reflects an issue that you had with your parental units. And what happens is when we have these issues, all it is the subconscious mind reflecting back to us in our physical external reality things that are available to be healed. Because a lot of times, especially as women, as the divine feminine, we have undergone so much trauma as a collective. Let me get some water. We've undergone so much trauma as a feminine collective, a lot of trauma with our reproductive rights, a lot of trauma with our ability and our understanding of our ability to care for ourselves and support ourselves. It's only in the recent history, within like the last 100 years, where women have fully gained equal rights to men. So it's important for us to understand how deeply seated in our subconscious it is for us as women to feel a need to ask for permission. So one of the easiest and quickest hacks to this is to start speaking with your inner child. And I do a lot of work with this with my one-on-one coachings, and I'm going to be developing some programs and courses for you all to help you guide you through this. It's going to be wonderful. Okay. But these things do show up in our relationships. They show up in many different forms. So an example from my life that helped me out, I realized that my relationship with my job, this was back when I was working for corporate America, which I no longer do. There was a job that I had that was reflecting a certain issue that I found resistance to. It was driving me crazy. And at the same time, I was in a relationship or a situationship that was reflecting the same thing. And when I sat down after enough pain and repeating that same cycle, I realized that I was the source of the issue. And what it was that I was overgiving in the relationship with my work and the time that I was putting in at that job. And I was overgiving with this relationship when in actuality, both of those situations I had outgrown on an internal level, but I was keeping myself in those relationships because I thought that that was what I deserved. I thought that that was what I was worth. And at that time, it was about proving my worth and my value to my boss and my coworkers and to this half-rate partner that didn't deserve me anyway. And it was like this light bulb went off. I mean, I went through the ringer with this job. I was in somewhat of a managerial position, and I had all these responsibilities placed on me. But every time something went wrong, nobody wanted to take responsibility, and everything kind of fell on me. And I was like, this is not for me. I know my worth. I know my value. I know the commitment and the positive energy that I bring into these spaces. And I know a lot of women that are dealing with these same things, where you take yourself for granted and then you show up in other spaces and you're surprised that other people take you for granted. So I quit that job and I blocked that person like all in the same day, because I don't mess around when it comes to my boundaries. It took me a second and I had to go through it. I had to go through the process, but I stepped away from that. Okay. And it was because my wounded inner child. I had done work on my wounded inner child to know that I was worth having a voice, to know that my truth, again, coming back to the issues that I had with my throat, that my truth was worthy of being heard. And if no one believed my truth, then that was a place where I didn't need to be. It no longer resonated with me, and I walked away. Okay, so let me look over here at my notes. So the next thing that I want to talk about as it comes to asking for permission, we've talked about how, it is inherent in our DNA and our subconscious nature as women to feel a need to ask for permission for everything. It's very natural. Okay. So, and I'm also want to let you know that it is okay. But when I take you through these three phases of feminine development and consciousness development, I want to show you that you don't need permission, because ultimately, as you go through your elevation and through your evolution, it's on you to have the responsibility and the confidence to know who you are. Okay, so in the three stages of feminine development, we have the youthful stage, the budding stage, okay, where a woman is young and she's exploring herself and she is trying on, let's say, different outfits, for example, different outfits, literally, and proverbial outfits as well. What does this type of presentation look like for me? What does this feel like for me? So the the maturation phase is all about you exploring what your voice sounds like and what it feels like through your personal expression. And it is also a time of rapid growth and integration, because when you're in this first stage, you are integrating a lot of information when you're a young woman. And you're learning those hard lessons, hopefully not repeating those same lessons, but learning and kind of maturing out of those lessons. Okay. This is that youthful stage. And she may or may not ask for permission for these things, but at the same time, she's transitioning out of the space where she is asking permission from her parents, and she is now asking for permission from her peers and from society, which right now everything is right here in front of our face. You can Google anything. Or she may have a strong community that she can refer to and that she can default to. So a lot of times her permission comes from what is deemed socially acceptable by who she is surrounded with and who she is influenced by. Okay. The second stage of feminine development is when you get more movement and when you have some experiences under your belt and you know what is for you and what is not for you. Okay, so you're a bit further along in your development. You're more mature, you're assertive, and now you know how to make moves in your reality. You know how to work your personality. You know how to move through your environment confidently in a way that feels more authentic to who you are. Okay. A lot of the times I would consider this to be the queen phase, because you are being more intentional about what you're doing with your energy and what you're doing with your attention. And so it becomes easy for you to revert to yourself, your authentic self, for that permission, because you no longer have to learn through mistakes. You've made all of your mistakes and you've corrected them. And now you know what is going to work for you, and you can be more creative and constructive with your reality. This is the second phase. And I would equate this to kind of like the queen aspect of your life. When you are in control primarily of yourself, you're able to affect more change on your reality easily, because it all comes from inside. Okay. So in the third phase, where a woman has grown in her consciousness level, she has wisdom now. So this is where experience becomes solidified as wisdom. And she can take her experience and she can apply it to experiences that have not even happened yet. Or she can see things coming before they even happen. Okay. This is the wise woman stage. This is the highest stage, the oldest stage that a woman can embody. But the reason that I'm sharing this with you is because these are not stages of feminine development that are related to your chronological age. You don't have to have children and be a boss babe and all of those things in order to be able to internally embody these traits and these characteristics. Okay. There are a lot of young women out here in their 20s who have a very clear idea of what they want for their future. That may be you. And congratulations to you if that's you. You may be on the right track. You may have had all great influences and you feel like you're being true to yourself. So you can embody all three of these stages just by doing your inner work, just by sitting and assessing. When I have a novel or new situation come across my path, when I am approaching solutions to these paths, am I approaching it with the wisest, most intelligent, and internally aligned approach that is going to support my future as best as I possibly can right now? And this will show you, if you know what the highest answer is for your highest path, and you choose to take that path versus reverting to what is easy, something that you know is going to keep you trapped in those loops. Because at this point, we are conscious beings. We are aware of our behavior. We are aware of what we are attracting. And you make the choice to bring yourself to your future self to the next level, then already you are in that mature queen stage. Okay. And then there are just some of us that were just born wise. We were born wise. And you know that you were born wise and that you were born with a certain level of maturity when you can actually look at people around you and you can learn from their lessons. And you don't have to wait for that lesson to come around to you to get the wisdom from it. You can avoid the mistakes by watching other people and their mistakes. And this is something that I'm so grateful that I was born with, because although I chose to make challenging decisions for myself in my younger age, which is half the fun, is making those challenging decisions and learning, and getting bruised up and banged up and earning your stripes. Because all of your challenges and all of your mistakes, they all become composted into the foundation that you are able to sit on and ground yourself into, because you have processed all of the hard experiences, all of the dark experiences. Okay. And so you can embrace all three of these stages. There's a stage of rapid growth, learning, and integration. There's a stage of maturity, awareness, and assertion. And the final stage is the stage of wisdom and deeply seated maturity. Okay. And so I encourage you to have that experience with yourself through journaling, through taking a moment to zoom out from your life picture whenever you get the chance, and ask yourself, from what state of consciousness am I approaching this issue? And when you start to zoom out and you start to recognize that you have the choice to drive your life, to be in the driver's seat of your life and create from an intentional space, then you give yourself personal power, and you also free up your inner child so that your inner child does not have to be beholden to the things that traumatize them when they were younger, from parents and from society, where you went back to these relationships in society to perpetuate those lessons in order for you to learn them and to remove yourself from those cycles. We all have the wise woman inside of us, but we have to give ourselves permission to access that, because our personal power is generated by our self-concept, is what I have. And you are the main character of your life. At the end of the day, you're the main character of your life. That should be a whole nother video. Okay. But you can only have personal power if you know what state of consciousness you're looking at your life from. Are you looking at a situation from a state of consciousness where it's like, oh, I know I might make some mistakes, but I might have a good time, you know? That's cool. That's fine. It can be novel. It can be fun. It can be juicy. Or are you looking at a situation where it's like, I'm in control of this. I know what I want out of it. I know that I can expect this lesson to come out of this situation. Or are you kind of chilling back like the old wise woman that's like, yeah, I kind of know how all this is going to play out. So when you're able to recognize that, you give yourself so much personal power. And when you have personal power, you can play and you become the driver's seat. And then in the passenger seat, this is when it gets really fun. In the passenger seat, you can have your inner child in the passenger seat telling you, without the fear of being judged, without the fear of someone shaking their hand at them and saying no, your inner child can say, this is where I want to go. This is the joy and the happiness that I always saw for us. And then you can allow your inner child to be the co-pilot. Now, this is not a discussion completely on inner child work. It is just to highlight the benefits of having a healed inner child so that you can begin to open up your levels of perceptions to greater things outside of the healing, outside of the coping mechanisms that you discovered and that you lean into during your personal development. It is to expose you to the potential of living from a mature state, which is a more integrated state. Because at the end of the day, once again, we carry our inner children with us. And then we also carry all of these three parts through our lifetime and through our development. And it is just such a fun process when you really start to sit with these, and then you start to recognize what aspects of yourself are showing up in different situations. And this has just been so much fun for me because, you know, life can really just harden you. Life can harden you, especially as women. A lot of us, we are hyper masculinized. We're always trying to see an outcome on something. But when you learn how to embrace all of your parts, you can really have just such a greater spectrum. So you get to see all of the colors in life and not just a few. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you in the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I've had such a blast with this conversation. Love to hear from you. Comment below. One love. Mwah.